So episode 1, Vipan, it's me and you, mate. We're here to talk informally about a few subjects. It's a real pleasure, mate, to always have a chat with you. So to be able to record these is a good thing. And today we're going to talk about resilience.
Gosh, heavy.
But as
important.
As off air, I just said, you know, you're the resilience guru.
I don't like that word. I don't like the word guru.
No, I don't like the word guru either.
Because it just implies I know it all, and I definitely don't.
So something a guru would say.
Yeah.
That's what a guru would say.
No, but
a guru would say, "I'm not a guru."
Yeah, it implies that you have this font of knowledge that no one else is ever going to get to. But I think that's the thing about you and I, is that we realize it's just our life experiences, and then we're quite that's what I think helps us be unique but stay grounded as well, that we can share all this information, but it doesn't make us, as it were, I think some people think themselves as special if they have that bit of knowledge, but I think the difference is that you and I want to share that knowledge with people, and I guess that's why I cringe when that word is used, and because then it puts expectations as well, doesn't it?
But Vipan, and I guess my first question is, and I'll make a comment before I ask the question. You are, in my opinion, you are qualified to talk about resilience. And my question would be, and I guess it would be the question of anyone who's sort of sussing out who Vipan Maney is, what's your resilience qualification? I guess you didn't get it from a university. You didn't go and get a certificate that qualified you to be resilient. And what qualifies someone to be resilient and to be able to talk about resilience?
Well, that's a fair point, and it's a fair question. I mean, why I believe I can talk about resilience so much is based on my own life experiences. And I think I guess the last decade has seen me. And what is resilience, first of all? So, it's getting. We all need to be resilient, because if we're not resilient, you can see people stuck in a rut. And whatever's happened to them, they're stuck in a rut, Simon. And you've seen those people, and I've seen those people. They can't move on in their lives. Something's happened to them. It could be a health issue, and even I meet people, a lot of people. Even I went to, it's quite bourgeoisie. I went to a wine club. And I'm not sure she's going to make it into the edit, but at the wine club, this guy comes to me. And he's had a heart attack, and he's a lot older, but you can see from the look of his face he's got fear. He doesn't know what to do, Simon. And then he comes to me and he whispers to me. He goes, "I hear you've had several heart attacks. What's your secret?" What, the secret of what? What? How come you're still smart? I get this question. When people hear about what you've been through, they say, "Why do you smile so much? Why come you can still smile?" I think it's there's no magic about it. I think so. I've learned a lot of things. I'm not always smiling. It's just I've been through a lot of dark times.
You can say shit.
I can say shit. I've been through a lot of shit. I mean, you have, but I think you learn. I read somewhere, if when you face a dark corner and you're in that corner and it's completely black, you've got to find a way out, otherwise you're going to be stuck there the whole life. And I've been in those corners like you have. You've got to think. And what I've done is I've actually been through those periods and looking back, and I've actually taken the time to actually understand myself. And I've also tried lots of things. Not everything's been successful, but then I've sort of thought about it and I've put it together. This is what I think it's clicked with me. Then thinking to myself, what has actually worked here, and why did it help me, and how did it help me? And I've put that together in a course that I've developed. But it's about being curious, to be honest with you. And everything that we've learned, you and I have learned, is about being curious. So I'm resilient because we've both been curious and we've both been able to understand what's happened to us and come through it on the other side and move on with our lives. And I guess that's why I feel I have that element of resilience, and the same as you. And you could talk about that same experience as me from your own personal experience, and you've come through really dark periods, but we've both been in a sort of a nadir bottom place, rock bottom, and then we've managed to come up, and not only that, we've grown as a result of it. So it's not just about coping with what we've been through. It's about learning from it and actually make us better people. I think this is the key to it. For me, if you hear this simplistic term of resilience is, I wish I had a ball here, I could show it. If I bounce the ball and that's it, oh, you can bounce back. It's not about bouncing back as such. That's a very simplistic element. I mean, you're not a ball, but secondly, you're not an inanimate object. You do have feelings and thoughts, and you're a sentient being. But it's about, you're not the same person, and this is a key mistake a lot of people make. And because why do I say that with such authority? Because that's exactly the mistakes I've made. When I say this is, how perhaps what you should consider, is because I've been and made those mistakes. I mean, trying to do the same thing for many years, not recognizing the importance of what's happened to you, is a recipe for disaster. And I've been there and done that. Thank you very much. So I'm trying to help people avoid those same mistakes. Is it the same as you? Yeah. So that's why I feel that's why I feel I can talk about it. It's just because of what I've learned basically over the last decade.
Yeah, I like that a lot, Vipan. And there's a few things that come to mind there. One is, there's two things. Number one, you've survived 3 heart attacks. I'm in recovery for alcohol addiction, and it's a lot more complicated than that, than just simplest. There's a lot more to it than that. But actually, everybody has that story. That's the one thing that's been blown me away, is everybody has a story with grief or suffering, addiction, heart attacks, loss, even if it's just the loss of a job or of a dream, but loss of loved ones. And this is the playing field that we find ourselves playing on. Is the Buddhists call it samsara. And samsara is the place where there's extremes, there's life and death and birth and happiness and sadness, and there's duality here. And I used to think I was special. I used to think I was special because my sister died of cancer, or because I lost my cricket career. And then when I got out of my own stuff, I looked up and I realized everybody's had a story with cancer. Everybody's failed at something. Everybody's confused. Everybody's doesn't really know what's going to happen. There's a lot of uncertainty globally, financially, and we are all in this together. And bringing it back to Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism Mahayana means the big boat, and they talk about compassion being the understanding that we are all in this big boat together on these rocky seas. And so what you said there about qualifying to talk about resilience was interesting, because it's not just about being on the boat with everybody. There's understanding you're on a boat. There's navigating the seas through experience. There's so much more to it that someone can, and people, there's another saying, the other thing that came to mind, which was, we don't go through the storm, we grow through the storm. People think you go through something. We've spoken about this before, that they don't realize that failure is feedback, and resistance is, there's another great quote I saw the other day, which was challenging times make strong men, or something like that, like the Stoic philosophy. And for me, resilience and what qualifies me, what makes me want to listen to you talk about resilience isn't that you survived 3 heart attacks. It's actually the decisions you've made afterwards to understand your experience, to extract the wisdom, to connect with your own sense of meaning, and then decide to be of service. That's what qualifies me, because resilience is almost like okay, we've been through this storm. I nearly died. What can I learn from it? I think people who aren't resilient are the people who go through the storm and then they sit in the corner waiting for the next storm to come, and they don't use their experience for good or something like that.
Yeah, and some people are staying in that storm and believe they're in a storm for the rest of their lives, Simon, and they feel self-pity and think they lose hope. I think this is one of the key aspects of people who don't get through the storm is they lose hope. And I firmly believe you can't go through life unless there is some element of hope. And I like the way you mentioned that we all go through a storm, but sometimes people might have 40 years or something and they don't have a storm. I've just met some friends who've had a really great life and everything's just gone so well for them. But something's really happened to one of their children this week. And I'm not, and it's the young man has got a serious illness, Simon. But it's absolutely thrown the parents. The mother is just beside herself, and I can see that she's needed medication. And although she's not coping, Simon, and because they haven't been through this, they just haven't. To me, it just seems clear that they haven't had that storm hit them before, and it's the same for a lot of young people. Some people go through life up until early 20s and they've been brilliant academically, have had nothing but success. But I think Ferguson said, you know nothing until you fail. Because then you learn. So failure is really important, and it's a key part of philosophy. But it's those, as you said yourself, it's one of those lessons that you learn when you're in that storm, Simon. Yeah. So resilience is about learning and growing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And it is. And we only have half an hour here to talk about this subject, and you have a course and there's lots of videos. This is what, I'm going to direct people to you and your courses and your videos. And resilience is a very vast subject, isn't it? I mean, you've identified, over a dozen traits of resilient people. There's current attitudes that people have that lead them to not be resilient. Like, it's a really complicated subject. And you have to know quite a lot about it to even be resilient. That's what I've learned from you in the last since I've known you, is resilience is a skill that's cultivated through awareness and through understanding. You have to know yourself to be resilient. I think that's the thing I'm learning. You have to really know who you are to be resilient.
You're right, Simon. You're absolutely right. I mean, resilience, there's a number of features that make you resilient, and actually knowing yourself and what you stand for, those are two key elements. So I don't want to talk about the course in detail, but I talk people through that. But it is, unless you know yourself, and a lot of the issues that people face and their beliefs come from childhood. So we explore limiting beliefs, for example, and we go through that. But a lot of resilience comes from you start by understanding how you behave, and how you behave comes from what you believe, and what you believe then goes a step further, is what you've been told to believe as a child or growing up by influential people such as your parents and teachers. And we go through life on that autopilot in our heads, thinking, I am this, I am that, I can't do this, I can't do that, and that makes you behave in certain ways, Simon. And I try and deconstruct that insofar as getting people to understanding what is it that they think they are and aren't. And then it's not about what you aren't, it's about, in fact, who you are and what are the positives. So trying to understand what strengths you have as well is just as important, actually. So there's a whole element of going right back to your roots, though. From trying to understand, why do you behave in a certain way? What is the root of that behavior? Definitely. And there's a definite character traits, and the other really important point that you've just said is that it is a skill. We're not born with resilience. We're not come out of our mother's womb being resilient or not being resilient. And maybe, studies have shown that genetics only plays, they've done studies on twins, for example. How interesting for you.
Yeah, and you.
Maybe, yeah, and me, 20 odd percent, 25% are maybe the traits are inherited. So if your parents are really resilient, there's that element, but the 75 odd percent is what you learn. Okay. So it is a skill, as you've rightly said, and pointed out, that you not only do you learn, and you have to learn, resilience is a skill, but it's you have to practice it as well, like any skill, like cricket, everything, sports and whatever. If you just think today, God, I've got through this problem, and you don't practice, maybe you will erode that resilience. So there's a number of things about resilience, that it is not fixed in time. And I think people should also realize that, you think you're resilient. Maybe you're resilient at work, and you cope with everything that happens to you at work pretty easily, and you can get through relative stressful periods in your life at work. And some people, you see them and you think, wow, that doesn't affect you. Look, you can look what happens to you. Look at the stresses you face, and yet you can just flow through life. It doesn't seem to affect them. But then at home, they might be totally non-resilient at home life, their home and personal life, and they can't establish relationships.
Yeah.
And they don't have a friendship circle, or a meaningful friendship circle. So their personal life, they're totally non-resilient. So it is multidimensional, and people also, they fit. And you and I have talked about this as well. There is a scale of resilience. So it's like a continuum, as it were, to all Star Trek fans.
I like that, Vipan. I like you talking about resilience and like different areas. There's a couple of analogies which I've learned along the way. One of them is, like the rope that they use to pull boats is made of different strands of rope. And if one of them gets frayed, it puts pressure on the other ones. There's a guy in Bali who taught me that one, which was quite good. And
I like that.
Yeah, and the other one is all the old Greek buildings with the pillars of the building. You've got 12 pillars, and the 12 pillars are there to hold the weight of the roof. And if one of the pillars, it puts the other 11 pillars under stress. And I think that that's a really interesting point, because, well, actually, I'm just, I'm thinking to myself, I'm resilient in so many ways. Just as I stock check while you were saying that, I was thinking there's areas of my life where I'm extremely resilient, and there's other ones where a light breeze collapses me, there are areas. And I think that if I look at my life as a whole, it's about having a general level of resilience, because from a risk perspective, certainly as a father or as a leader or someone who has responsibility, it's important that I have a general level of resilience, rather than I'm really resilient in these 5 areas, but these 5 areas, because at some point those 5 areas will come under strain. This is the thing about life, that I knowing that the Buddha said life is suffering, and Jesus is the Western archetype is a man who's been nailed to a cross. There's no religious or spiritual teaching that teaches that life is a big fluffy cloud. Right? There's nothing there. I mean, that in Hinduism, nirvana is something to be attained, right? You're meant. And so knowing that life is suffering, we sit here right now and we go that everyone, certainly the people who are older than us are going to die, right? My dad's alive, my stepmom's alive, but I've already said goodbye to my mum, and you could go even deeper and go, well, actually today I'm going to get in the car. I don't know what's going to happen. There's lots of values that come from a more mature worldview. One of them is gratitude, because you'd be grateful for what you've got. And I know gratitude is a really important part of resilience.
Yeah.
But also resilience becomes this sort of thing, which is like, it's not about being resilient over what happened yesterday. I can sit here and go, God, I'm so resilient because I'm in recovery. Well, that's gone. It's really about, when's the next challenge going to come? Because life will bring, the storm will come. If it's not here already, the storm will come. COVID came, right? COVID came and highlighted where we were all weak and not as resilient.
Wow.
We're more resilient for it, but the next COVID will come, financial crashes come, death comes, illness comes. And so it feels to me that especially the people who haven't had hardship should be becoming resilient, because the storm will come. You know, if you've got a flimsy little house and you live in the middle of, I'm trying to think of somewhere in America where there's tornadoes, and there hasn't been a tornado. It's like the thingy fault line.
New Orleans. Yeah,
New Orleans. It's like the fault line, the San Andreas fault line, right? It's like that.
Yeah.
Hasn't been an earthquake for a while, but the earthquake will come. And so you can sit there on a house that can't cope with it, and you don't have a shelter or a plan. But to be truly resilient also means to be aware of the future, as well as have integrated lessons from the past.
I totally, very, 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 very good point, Simon. I think that's why I feel, you know, when I said resilience, you can be resilient at a point in time, but you need to practice and develop habits, and it's about growth. So you still have to develop habits, frankly, and to maintain resilience. To be honest, this is what it means. It means you develop healthy, good habits, and you mentioned one of them is expressing gratitude. And there's a number of habits, and it's a way of thinking as well, Simon, and that takes practice. For example, some people talk about let's say optimism. Optimism is really important. Optimism isn't about looking through rose-tinted glasses, as you and I have had a previous discussion about that. It's about how you deal with when you face things, and it's a way of looking at life. Is life full of if something happens to you, do you look at it from a pessimistic attitude that, oh, it's bound to happen, it's my fault, I deserve nothing better? Or you think, well, gosh, that was unfortunate, but it's only temporary and I can get over this and let's move on. You view things as a temporary, and if things happen to you that are bad, it's a temporary setback. It's not a permanent. It's not permanent. It's not a stain on you. So it's a way of thinking, optimism. But but you have to that takes time to change your thinking processes. And first of all, as we talked about already, you've got to understand it. How do you actually talk to yourself? Do you actually think? I mean, so if something bad happens, what is the first thing that you think about? Do you automatically blame yourself, or do you look at external factors? So that's that which are beyond your control, by the way. So you couldn't control whatever happens to you or happened to you in a lot of instances. But even if things are your fault, there's no point. I think a word I like is called rumination. So you dwell on that fact or that point, and that self-blame for I don't know, you persevere in that thinking process is a bit okay. If it's happening, it's your fault. But by saying that and contemplating that for, you could sit on there for weeks and months, doesn't really alter the fact that it's happened. So you've got to have a strategy and deal with it, and then move on. And as you said before, as we talked about, what have you learned from that? If it is your fault, you want to do things that it doesn't happen again. So I think this is a key part of being resilient. Definitely. Optimism, as well as some of that important habits. And I like the word gratitude. So for me, every day I try and spend a bit of time at night in a quiet space, just getting my pen and paper out in a journal and writing things, what's happened and how do I feel, but also just I always finish the day with saying what's the best bit of the day, what's been the happy moment of today. So but if you think through things, something nice has happened to you, but most of us don't actually think about it, do we? We just go to bed thinking, oh, that was a shit day. No, in fact,
no.
It might have been a bad day, but however, there was one point in the day where you actually did enjoy the company of someone.
It's not hard to find it if you look. I think we're not wired. I don't know what it is about the reptilian brain, the ego, whatever it is, but we're not wired to see it. I don't think we have to practice it. I think gratitude, you meet people who are inherently grateful, but they are few and far between. I think most people have to practice gratitude. I know I do. you know, and it's not hard to find it when it's that shift in perspective. Often I heard something recently. I told you about Jordan Peterson, real short on YouTube. He just said there's a tribe in Nepal that in the morning the men climb up the side of a mountain, no, a volcano. They climb up the side of a volcano which is spitting sulfur, and it erupted not long ago, and it could erupt any moment. They then abseil down the inside of a volcano while it spits sulfur. Wow. Sulfur can hit them and give them third-degree burns or just kill them straight out. They've got a rag over their mouth to stop them breathing in the sulfur, and if they breathe it in, they'll probably get lung cancer at the best. Worst is their lungs will just burn in their chest, and they do it to grab a piece of crystallized sulfur to bring it out, and they sell it for a couple of dollars, and that sustains their family for a month. He tells this story and then he goes, that's not your life.
Yeah.
You know, that's not your life. And I've been thinking about that recently because challenges come, you know, if anybody who has a family or has responsibilities, has children, has a work, the challenges come, or even has an internal condition, you know, everybody finds life pretty hard. I would say it's internally just quite confusing. You know, certainly as a man, the sense of responsibility for my family, not just the happiness of my family, but the well-being and the provision and the protection. But ultimately, that's not my life, you know, and it's not hard to come up with a lot of those examples, but I have to train myself, and I'm not very good at it, to be grateful. And gratitude, the more that word, I explore that word, the more I think resilient, you know, gratitude is a precursor for everything positive, you know, resilience, happiness, meaning, you know, to be truly grateful. And on that, I'm really grateful to be on this call with you, but we have to wrap it up. So that's our little short little resilience chat. I like it.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, we just started touching the subject, but there's so much more to say. But again, I'm sure we'll come back to it other times, won't we?
Well, I think a lot of these chats, Vipan, they're all going to merge into one. I mean, the next thing I'd like to talk to you about is failure.
Yeah.
You know, I think on our next chat, let's talk about failure. You know, and I think that it's a flow on failure as a means of learning and growing, and failure and resilience are completely intertwined with each other. So
yeah, I think there's a massive link there, Simon. Yeah, definitely.
You know, and gratitude and failure. So the way that I see these chats is, you know, we'll set it up for the next one. And so, right, we'll say goodbye to the viewers now. Do you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye, viewers.